Okay, so this is the Doom Patrol by John Bryne, the complete series omnibus. It doesn't actually say omnibus anywhere on here, but that's basically what it is. Comic book legend John Bryne reinvents the Doom Patrol for a new era. Collects the JLA 94 to 99, Doom Patrol number 1 to 18, along with complete Doom Patrol related works of Byrne from Secret Origins, Annual number 1, Superman number 20, and more. So there's some bonus material in here. And some of those that I mentioned were already collected in the Doom Patrol Bronze Age omnibus, which, as you can see, is a lot thicker. Well, not a lot, I suppose, but a fair bit thicker. But basically, after Koberg relaunched the Doom Patrol in 1987, Grant Morrison took over the title, as most people know, and then Rachel Pollock followed him. After that series ended, John Arcudi had a, I think, 22-issue run on a new Doom Patrol series, which he had basically killed off the entire team at that point. The original team, I should say, that Morrison and Pollock had used. And then created a bunch of new characters and left Robot Man alive. And then later, because I guess that series got cancelled, DC went to John Bryne and asked him to launch a new Doom Patrol book. And he decided, or DC decided, to start from scratch. So they erased all the Doom Patrol history and canon at that point. And basically decided to bring the Doom Patrol into the DC universe as if they had never existed before. So you've got your original members, Elastigirl or Elastigwoman, Robot Man, Negative Man, and then you've got 3 new characters. Nudge, who is a kind of like a telepath who can make people do what she wants them to do. To a lesser extent, she's not like Professor X, is not quite that powerful, I don't think. But she can convince people to do things that normally they wouldn't do otherwise. You've got Grunt, who is a 4-armed gorilla with a human brain in him, and Vortex, who is an energy being from the future, kind of. I think that's what we would call them. Anyway, they're kind of, each of these characters are kind of, they're almost variations on the original members of the Doom Patrol. There's instead of a human brain and a robot body, there's a human brain and a 4-armed gorilla, and the energy being known as Vortex is a few levels higher than Negative Man, which is, I think, is phase 0 or phase 1, and Vortex is like a phase 3 or something. This is the inside cover, or the wraparound cover for the trade. Ooh, you're the crack. For the omnibus. And I originally, before I read it, I thought this was a version of Grunt, sorry. But actually, it's Rita Farr, aka Elastigirl. You'll find out why if you read the book. But it's pretty neat they did a cover for this one. They never did any for the Silver Age or Bronze Age omnibi. So let's just take a look through it here. One thing I will say about this, Bryne's artwork is pretty good. It usually is, but it's, again, this is, I'm not exactly sure what year this came out, or what year the comics were originally published. Let me just see here. 2004, I think it was started. But you do have an introduction by Byrne, which was included in the, I guess, the first issue of the Doom Patrol series, Doom Patrol number 1, August 2004. The one thing I will say about this that was, for me, it wasn't too bad because I have the full series in this volume. But the story, the 10th Circle, started in JLA, which is Justice League of America. If you don't know, that's Faith, an old JLA member who hasn't been seen much since. But it was a 6-part story in JLA that involved the reintroduction of the Doom Patrol and had them and the Justice League facing off against a vampire who was capturing metahumans so you could use them so you could have other ancient vampire creatures possess their bodies for some reason. So like I said, the artwork here is pretty good, but the big problem that you would have had reading the story at the time is that it's a 6-issue story from JLA that then continues into the first 2 issues of Doom Patrol. And if you're going to start off a new book, you should at least start off with a new story. And like most of this is JLA oriented because it is their title for the first 6 issues in this volume. Hey, that's a pretty cool shot there. But this is the story that introduces Nudge, Grunt, and Vortex, and they're actually cult members, I guess, of the Vampire, starting out, before they join the Doom Patrol, and get their new costumes. That's a pretty cool cover. I like that. But like I said, Doom Patrol number 1 and 2, which is what this starts here, Doom Patrol number 1, issue number 1 here, continues on from JLA number 99. Instead of starting off with like a whole new story, it just kind of picks up a few minutes after JLA number 99, and you know, if someone was reading this who had just walked in off the street and bought the first issue of a new comic, you think they would be looking for a new story with new characters and wanting a good jumping on point. This really isn't. This is it would have been confusing as hell, I think, for anyone that had never read the first, or had read the 6 issues of JLA before the issue number 1 of Doom Patrol. But after that, thankfully, with about issue number 3, they get into, and this is kind of the cover from the that you see on the slipcase. But with issue number 3 is when the book really starts to get going here, because they delve into more Doom Patrol centric storylines. And most of the stories are actually pretty good. They're not quite as weird as Grant Morrison or Gerard Way's storylines. But there are some, you know, X-Files type of stuff here. It's almost more X-Men than Doom Patrol in some senses, because they do deal a lot with mutants and vampires and you know, standard superhero fare. It's not quite as heavy or as weird as Morrison or Gerard Way got after. And even some of the Keith Giffen stuff is a bit weirder than some of this, but they do, there are stories involving robots fighting with human brains. And time travel, there's energy beings from the future, like I said. There's a bunch of new villains introduced here. There's the de-evolutionists, which have turned everyone into apes. I don't know why. It never really gets explained exactly. But like I said, throughout the artwork is really good to me. The only problem is that sometimes you can't tell Rita and Nudge apart from each other, aside from the fact that Nudge has shorter hair and a really bad costume. But overall, it is entertaining. There are some story points that become iffy, let's just say, for longtime Doom Patrol fans, mostly regarding the relationship between Elasti Woman and Cliff Steele. And Metamorpho takes a fairly big role in this as well at some point, so that's nice. But Byrne came up with the idea of having Elastigirl have a crush on, that's a cool cover as well, have a crush on Cliff Steele since she was like 8 years old. And it kind of gets weird at one point, as most things with Byrne do, because they go back in time to their old bodies, only he's in the body of Cliff Steele, who is in his 30s or 40s, and Rita goes back in time but she's in the body of her 13-year-old self. So immediately it's, you know, kind of gross. Then you've got a ghost as this, not really a member, but a supporting character, I guess, who starts dating Nudge. So there are, you know, it does get really weird and strange. And he does jump into alternate timelines a bit. You can see alternate timeline Rita there. And he goes back to the death of the Doom Patrol from the first Doom Patrol series, in which Rita kind of shrinks out of her net, which she, for some reason she never did in the original story, and she ends up saving the day. But overall, you know, this part of Doom Patrol history is kind of frowned upon, I guess, or not regarded quite as highly as a lot of the other stuff. But overall, I did enjoy this. This is the first time I read through any of it. I think before, back in 2004, I read maybe the first 2 issues of his JLA run, and wasn't really impressed by it. So when I came back and read this, or when I picked this up, I was actually pleasantly surprised by it. That's a great cover, piece of art there as well. And the further adventures of the Doom Patrol by John Bryne. This just includes stuff that was like Who's pages, and the Secret Origins annual that was in the Bronze Age omnibus, as I said, and the issue of Superman that, because Byrne was writing Superman in '87 when the Doom Patrol came in for an issue, right here, with Robot Man and Metallo. And there are some bonus pages, if I can get to them here, with the original inks from the annual. And this is pretty cool, the character designs that Byrne had done before the series started, I guess. And you can see here the digital renderings that Byrne did. So a bit of bonus material, not quite as much as the Bronze Age omnibus, but still pretty cool to see. So, again, a few problems with the story aside. Again, in terms of continuing on a 6-part story with the first 2 issues of the relaunch of Doom Patrol, which is that it would be really hard for anyone new coming into the series, or starting it with just the first issue, to kind of get a grasp onto it, which is maybe why it only lasted 18 issues. It was pretty good. I liked it. Like I said, again, the stuff with Cliff and Rita maybe could have been handled a bit better. Just so it doesn't look, because they do kind of make a joke about it where he gets caught with the underage Rita, and basically the cops get involved, as you know they would. But overall, a pretty solid series, and I liked it. There was some jumping around back and forth between the present and the past. He does that in almost every issue, and it does kind of get annoying at times. And some of he'll take the last few pages of, say, issue 5 or 6, and kind of redraw or retell those same pages from a different angle, starting with to go into like issue 7 or whatever. That's not, may not be those exact issues, but that's just to give you an idea of what it was like. So you do kind of end up reading the same panels over twice, just from seeing it from a different perspective, which in one respect is kind of cool, but I don't know, it just kind of put me off while I was reading it a bit. But overall, it was a lot better than I anticipated, because you know, like I said, it hasn't been the most well-received era of the Doom Patrol in some quarters. But if you want to learn more about the Doom Patrol, you can go online and read out their adventures in Comixology. I know that most comic shops are closed now because of the coronavirus, but you still have Comixology to find back issues of Doom Patrol, and the current Doom Patrol series, Weight of the Worlds, has 1 issue left, which is supposed to be out this month, but I think it's delayed again until April, and will probably be delayed even further now because of all the things going on in the world. But hopefully when that series finishes up and they release the Doom Patrol Weight of the World's Trade, I'll go through the Gerard Way run of Doom Patrol, which collects... he's done 2 Doom Patrol series now. One was 13 issues and the current one is 7 issues. So I'll get into those after. But yeah, Doom Patrol by John Byrne. Like I said, overall pretty good. And check it out. It retails for, let me just check the price on this, $75 US, $99 Canadian. So, not a bad price for an omnibus. But yeah, comics, woo!